guess, a little comedic, but at the same time, kind of down to earth. Know a lot of times network firms, they can kind of have a much more businessy style of naming. So that being said, so in our bios, I took the lead on this one as project lead, and I live in Abilene, Texas. I graduated from Hardin Simmons University. Decided to start taking this class after I joined my current job with True Simulation. DeAndre, the same thing. He's finishing up his master's class now, and as you can see, Dustin and Dylan at the same time. Dustin just started the master's class, and then Dylan, I believe, is in the middle of it. And there's the bios. I'm not sure don't really want to go through all the bios since that's not really the focus of the presentation. But with our company, we want to give customers. We want customers to know that what they get or what we present is an honest estimate and is honest work. We don't want them to think that we're going to overpower them with information just so that it blindsides them. And so that being said, we put our powers together. I do well with the networking side of things, though this is kind of telecommunications for management. We all have our different strengths, and so I deal primarily in network administration. Dustin has good experience with cabling, DeAndre with security, and Dylan with financials and also design of things. So that being said, we took on Canine Coachers, the issues that they brought to us, and we decided that we had a good design for that. So in this proposal, we'll be covering the business case, the logical diagram, physical diagram, wireless diagram, various concerns that might present themselves security-wise, the financial analysis as best as we could, and kind of what drives the network, whether it be cost or revenue, and then any concerns that we might have for management and that they might have for us, and how they might proceed with the network once we've installed it. So that being said, we have Canine Kosher who brought us a case and asked us if we could design a network that would be able to handle their growth as a company, starting out from a solo activity, growing into an actual full-blown team and business. And so we decided that our network needed to be able to be scalable as well as be easily managed and cost-effective if possible. So with that in mind, we started out with our logical diagram. We decided that we would set up 5 different VLANs, and we went ahead and went with VLANs because they're easy to set up, and they will provide scalability for the company, for Canine Kosher. With that being said, security being said, we'll also have a firewall that will act as a UTM. It'll provide anti-malware and anti-spyware and antivirus protection for the network as a whole. It'll come to the firewall, then it'll hit a layer 3 switch, and that's where our VLANing and our routing will occur. We didn't think that it would be necessary to implement a router as well, when we could get the same functionality with just a layer 3 switch. We're going to use 5 different IP address schemes, and mainly that's just for sorting it out and for easier management, though each IP scheme will allow for about 254 hosts. We feel like that's in their current state, that'll give them enough room to grow if they need to add more devices or more people. So we will have 5 VLANs, 1 for private, 1 for security, 1 for private wireless, 1 for public wireless, and then the last being for management. And as we can see right here, this is kind of how we'll segment things out. We thought it'd be best to put the security system on its own VLAN. That way we don't really have to deal with quality of service necessarily, and it won't degrade the network quality won't have its network quality degraded by normal traffic on the public or the private LAN and private wireless. We thought it also best to separate the public wireless from the rest of the network for security reasons. We don't want guests being able to access vital network resources if they're not given access to that, if they're not authorized to do so. But at the same time, we want them to be able to access internet, such as if it's a visiting vendor or contractor or supplier or anything to that effect, or even if they decide to open up some sort of frontal shop to allow customers to come in and buy sweaters or their product or whatever. We thought it best to just allow them to have internet access, but also to have that control to keep them away from the vital network access. We'll include a DHCP server, a domain controller, and also a DNS server. Those 3 things, and also a radius server. Those 4 things will be on the same server. We figured it'd be best to keep them, instead of trying to split them up into different servers. That's simple roles that we can set up easily and cheaply on one server. We'll also have a network attached storage so that we can create backups of the servers and any other vital hardware that they want. and that way we have a little bit of redundancy. And then if they want to store part of that offsite in a physical form, they absolutely can. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. A lot of their services, the reason we didn't go with a web server or an email client is we thought it would be a better idea for us to use a cloud services for that. Much easier on the company themselves. It's less hardware management that they have to deal with and software management. And that way it's also accessible from wherever the employees are. They can, if power goes down to the facility, they still have access to their emails. We at first decided that we were going to utilize a VoIP solution. And we kind of are, but not in a entirely integrated, not in the same manner as most VoIP solutions. We're going to utilize Skype for Business. And so we'll primarily utilize soft phone systems. And if there's any employees that want a hard phone, an actual tangible phone on their desk, we absolutely can negotiate that as well and add that in there. But as far as soft phones, we felt that would be a good idea, because then they can simply hook up a microphone or a headset to their computer or their workstation, and at the same time they can also use that on their cell phones. And so if they have to leave the office, I know that there's that line of work and life, but if they do so choose to allow it on their cell phone, they can be accessed that way utilizing the same extension that they set up, and it's cost effective as well. So if that, once again, it's easy to implement, and should they lose any sort of power or have any disaster strike, and Trey will talk more about that, but they'll have the ability to still utilize their communications in a positive way. I don't believe I'm leaving anything out there. So I will hand this off. Dustin performed our physical diagrams, and so I will hand this off to Dustin.
All right, so our physical diagram, we're going to have 38 data ports throughout the office. We made sure to put 2 drops per patch, or per patch panel, or I'm going blank right now. I can't, do I have access to, I can't switch pages, there it goes. So we went with 2 network drops per wall, with 2 connections per drop. That way it provides redundancy for any user. Something gets in the wall, tears up a cable, it's not a huge issue. It can easily be fixed, but in the meantime, they can always just make that quick switch. We've provided 3 wireless access points, making sure there's coverage no matter where you're at in the building. And each of those will have 2 drops as well, just for redundancy. All the security cameras will be run the same way. We've got 1 security camera in the reception area, 1 security camera in an open office area that will point to the data center. 4 on the outside, 1 on each corner of the building, making sure they have full coverage of everywhere outside the building and inside the building as well. We decided to go with 2 printers, 3 printers just for cost effectiveness. 2 printers in the front that are network printers. Anyone can print to. The office isn't that big of a building, so it's not a big deal we didn't feel like it would be a big deal to get up and walk to those specific printers. In the warehouse, we've got a drop for a printer. We didn't purchase one in this because we weren't sure how much it would be utilized, but there's a drop for that in case it needs to be installed, so the warehouse manager can print off their invoices and receivables. So here's our our wireless diagram. As you can see, fairly good coverage throughout all locations, even between walls. There's our 2.4 gigahertz, which it should be sufficient for everything that they're doing. This part, I believe we're going to hand off to Trey for security concerns and solutions, and I'll be back to talk about the equipment that was provided.
Okay, so for the security concern, we do have quite a few security concerns that we must address before when we are implementing any of our business solutions. So we first have our external solution. That's going to concern the actual physical entry into the building. And those are always provided by the actual office themselves. They provide the door locks for those, but we do have our own security implement as well as far as concerning the videos that do have to record those. And those will handle anything from our network defense, our incident responses, and our network availability. So like you said before, we do have that firewall as our main entry point into our physical network. But we do actually have our physical perimeter stuff taken care as well in our perimeter defense. And that includes the routers and the switches as well and the firewalls. So those are taken care of. And we also have our authentication as far as accessing our network. We have our user and our Active Directory set up through our servers. So those are taken care of. You have to have the specific requirements that we will address later on as far as our management is concerned, as far as what type of actual password protection that we will go with and encryption that we do. We will need for each one. And all of our routing protocols are set up as far as for those. As far as, can you guys hear me? I'm echoing on my end. Okay. And when we do set those up, each user will have the certain security policies and awareness training they have to go through. So we have those set up as far as for email, as far as phishing attacks and any type of social engineering attacks that may be implemented by users that are accessing our facility in our reception area. So we do have those policies in place as far as trainings that they must go through. And those policies that we have inside of our company have to be addressed. I feel like I'm just yelling because it's echoing on my end.
No, you're fine, man. You sound just fine.
Yeah, I'm just getting echo as I'm speaking. It's kind of throwing me off when I'm talking. And so as a good rule of thumb, to start that all of our policies and procedures are taken care of as far as intrusion protection and as far as event that hardware does fail, we have those management concerns addressed in our management concerns. So we do have those taken care of as well in our policies and procedures that we will address later on in our presentation. But those are some of the ones that we do, our main ones that we will have to address. And like I said, we will address those in our management concerns. And so we also have our backups, and that includes our backups and recoveries as far as we have our offsite recovery. So in case that something happens in our building where power is lost, we do have backups in place so that disk images can be restored back to our servers in the case of hardware failure or any type of network failure as well. So those are taken care of. And for our cloud application backups, we have those offsite as well. That's what we're going to use for our offsite storage as our cloud backup as well. So that in the event that we're not going to have all of our backups on site as far as we do have our network attached storage that is connected to our internal data storage. We also have our cloud backup as well, so that in the event that the natural disaster happens, we do have our cloud application backup as well to prevent that. And we're going to use our Office 365 White because we also have our workstation that our Surface Books and our Surface Pros, so they are portable, so the users are able to take those home. So in the event that they happen to lose the device, that actually is incorporated with our cloud backup, so that we can always remote wipe the device in the event that is lost and actually system integrity is not compromised in the event that someone doesn't discover the device. And so those are all plans that we have implemented for backups and for our applications backups in place, so those are taken care of. As far as for our UPS battery backups, we have a UPS backup that will be in our data center. So in the event that our system does fail, we actually have our UPS in place so that we can have time to actually shut down our services properly, and so that no corruption none of our servers and none of our file servers are corrupted. So even though we do have those backups, it does provide us a way to actually VPN into our systems if we're not on location. It happens outside of business hours to actually have whoever is providing support for our system the opportunity to log in and actually shut down our servers and any type of equipment that needs to be shut down. It provides just enough time for that. So we'll be taking care of our UPS battery backups. And now we're going to have our financial analysis.
All right, so this is the bread and butter. This is what accounting control wants to know, is how much money they're going to gain from implementing our system if they choose to go with us. So let's go ahead, let's dive into our return on y'all's return on the investment. Now we calculated this by taking total cost of ownership, which is going to be, with all the hardware and servers that we're going to put into place, is going to be about $58,000. Yes, that sounds a lot, but we have projected that if you go with our system, you will have it paid off by year 3. So the first year, we calculated about 31.93%, and this is basically our assumption of how much money you've made thus far as being in business, divided by the total cost of ownership, and that's how we roughly came across at 31.93%. Now, as the years go on and as you're paying off our system, of course, the amount that you're going to return is going to increase. It's just basic knowledge that if you pay off your debt, then you have more money to spend because you're not using that money to pay off more debt. You also have a lower cost of handling all of your merchandise and your production because you can integrate the supply system that your suppliers use with our system. We have handpicked out certain equipment so that your job will become easier and you can automate these tasks. You can have better inventory management inside of your warehouse. You can communicate to your suppliers as well as communicate to new and existing customers so that you can build those relationships. With all of these combined factors, the overall cost of your return of investment is going to increase. So year 2, you're going to have a 70.41% increase. And then year 3, when it's all paid off, you will only see nothing but a greater amount of revenue. Your amount that you're going to gain, the amount of money that's going to come in with the implementation of our system is going to continue to grow over the next 5 years.
And now let's talk about the actual hardware that we're going to implement. And so I'm going to hand this back off to Dustin.
Hey, Dustin, I'm going to implement something or put in something real quick. We actually decided to go with, instead of just cost and just revenue, we decided that the network is going to drive kind of both. It's since she's going from a solo operation, I apologize. Since she's going from a solo operation, they will be. It's really twofold. She's gaining a system that will give her more revenue at the same time that it's driving down costs, and mainly that's because she didn't have it's most likely that she didn't have the greatest of systems in place already. And so instead of just basing it off of one or the other, even though it's not like a Netflix style of company, we do believe that this network will help bring in revenue, but at this exact same time, it will help put down her costs. And then when she gets to a better baseline, any new network upgrades that maybe that y'all have us come out and do will provide better, lower cost, or one or the other at that point. So Dustin, back to you. I apologize.
Not a problem. So we decided to go with the higher quality Surface Book, and we went with the Surface Books because it gives the user the opportunity to be able to take their designs wherever and design straight from the tablet using the Surface Pens, and not lose any resources using the more resource intensive programs that you would find on a company that uses design software. That's mainly for your designers. For the warehouse and the reception area, we didn't see them needing a $2,000 unit. They're just going to be essentially taking calls, taking inventory, and the ability to walk around in the warehouse with just a Surface Pro is pretty handy for someone who has to cover a lot of space. Each workstation is going to go ahead and come with a wireless keyboard and mouse that gives the users full access to an actual keyboard and mouse, as well as my screen's not moving, monitor and docking station. So they won't have to only work on the smaller screen that may limit some of the users. As I said earlier, we went with 2 printers. We went with the Dell multifunction printers that gives a long-lasting, it's a good supply that doesn't go through ink as fast, doesn't go through, I can't think of the words right now.
Toner?
Yeah, it doesn't go through the toner as fast, and has a high page per minute count. That's what I was looking for. For our domain controller, DNS, and what you said it earlier, and now I'm lost.
So that'll help provide
Radius server.
Controller, DHCP.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to think of, is the radius controller. We went with the R430. Doesn't have to have a whole bunch of resources because it's not going to have a lot of hits with just 12 users in the company using it. For our network area storage, we went with the Dell NX430 with 4 terabytes of storage, setting up in a RAID 6 that will allow plenty of fault tolerance and hot swappable drives. For our battery backup, we went with the Triple Light Smart 2200 CRM rack mounted, because that way it can go in the same rack as our servers. As Joshua talked about earlier, we went with the Cisco ASA 5506 firewall and router that provides the ability to have separate VLANs, and a Cisco Catalyst 3560 PoE switch that can provide the power for our wireless access points and give the ability to set quality of service, set your VLANs up on that as well. For our security system, we went with a Hikvision network video recorder. All the data that is stored will be stored on 2 terabytes of hard drives inside the system. That way you don't have to go over, you don't have to use network resources to actually view the video. It has PoE built in, 8 PoE ports built into the video recorder itself. That way it's not taking up extra ports on the switch. All the cameras are 5 megapixel except the one in the server room, just because it's not as wide of a range to cover. It's just mainly watching the data closet. And with that said, I believe I'm going to hand off to Joshua for more financials.
And on this, we So the table is pretty cut and dry, but we felt it best to just kind of break it down for y'all. That being said, we have the total cost of ownership that we came up with. We felt like, if I can get this thing, there it goes. The big thing is these subscriptions right here, which we weren't covered in the hardware, but they are necessary. We decided also not to host Canine Kosher's website in-house, mainly because that would require them to be focused on. We wouldn't want their focus to be on managing their network necessarily, which we'll talk about more later in the concerns. But we really wanted to allow them to focus on growing and selling their products more than anything. And so we felt like the total cost of ownership in this respect, and the total is very similar to the total cost of project, though they may pay for some extra maintenance services on down the road. We didn't really know what those, if that would be something that they would do or not. That being said, we felt like it wouldn't take too much extra cost for them to do so. So we feel like the TCO and the cost of the project are very, very close, if not the same, in what they'll be in the initial cost of the investment in general. That being said, with the software, they'll pay for a 1 year at a time for Office 365 for Business. This will provide them with the Skype for Business, as well as a way to integrate that with Active Directory on their domain controller. It'll also give each user, I believe, a terabyte of data each to utilize. It's either I believe it's a terabyte. And so that's each individual user. Also, and that'll be stored on the cloud on OneDrive. It also gives them Microsoft Office. They'll be able to install that on their computer, the entire suite. But at the same time, in the event that, say, they don't have, they didn't take their Surface Book home or their Surface Pro home, or they just have access to a hotel computer for some reason, or their home computer, they can actually utilize Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, all three of those from the cloud through Microsoft 365, much in the same way that Charlton allows us. And so then we also decided that we would set them up with some archival data using Amazon Glacier. It differs from normal server data in the sense that it's archival, so they're not actually withdrawing data at the same time. They're merely uploading to it, and for that, we would utilize that for crucial data backup. Mainly, we'd back up servers to the server images to the NAS, but at the same time to the cloud, and any other data that they deemed as critical, we would upload there. It's very cheap, and if they ever do need to withdraw it, it's a very though Amazon charges them to do so, it won't charge them. It won't cost them very much in the event that they have to. And then once again, their web hosting. We decided that GoDaddy would be a good resource for them to start out with. And if Canine Kosher decides to go a different route, that's up to them. But GoDaddy, I believe the majority of this group has used it, and they offer very good, very affordable pricing. And so all their web hosting would be able to be stored there. And that would also mean that in the realm of accessibility, it wouldn't be on them in the event that a server crashed or anything like that, that their website go down. I know that Canine Kosher, being a solo project to begin with, was most likely kind of out of a garage style product shipping system and ordering system, but now they'll be able to, the web presence will definitely help them become a bigger presence in that respect. And so it'll be very vital to them to have that on a continued basis. And with GoDaddy web hosting, they also pay for 24/7 support, and they're also paying in that simple $35.88 fee. They're paying for not only 24/7 support, but server maintenance on GoDaddy's part. And so they don't have to worry about that. All they have to do is, if they already have an existing website, they just transfer it over. Or if they do not, then GoDaddy will help them set one up for free and get it going. So we felt that would be the best option. And so they don't have to focus on how do I build a website or anything like that. They can just get up and going and start selling product. I'm sorry about that, Trey. And then Trey is going to address our management concerns real quick.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about our management concerns. Can you go back to the slide before that? I don't have control. Okay, so our management concerns consist of our system support, our documentation, our configuration management. So initially, after we make all our installs for Canine Kosher, we're going to provide support for over 6 months. And it's going to include any monitoring of the system, of the networks, any installation updates they need to the workstation, to the server, and we will provide that initially for the first 6 months. And if we do offer after the end of the 6 months a long-term service agreement that can be renegotiated. But that's not included in our pricing. It actually be renegotiated after the 6 months. And if they decide not to go with our services, there are other options that they have. Some of the other options that they have or have hired is hiring an on-site technician that will be hired on-site for them, that will take care of all of their network issues. Or they can, we actually recommend the service, a company called Consura that will handle all of the antivirus, spyware protection, any preventative maintenance that they might need as far as with the servers, patch management, any help desk support they offer with extended hours as well. That provides 24/7 monitoring, and also any type of hardware support. So we do recommend consider they do decide not to go with our services or have an on-site technician. Other concerns that we need to address are documentation. Currently, there hasn't been any documentation, so there needs to be documentation such as network maps, all the equipment that is installed throughout the company, as far as which workstation we have, which version of operating system we're using, and so that must be one of the main focuses, and that kind of ties into our life cycle management as far as having the proper. Oh, well, you don't have to switch to the slides. I'll just mention it. It kind of ties into our life cycle management as far as how long we're going to keep products, and having a documentation of these is the best way to address all of our equipment needs at that specific point in time. And this kind of leads to our security procedures that we have in place. The main thing is the first thing is our initial password protection, our complexity, having a nice sophisticated password class as far as symbols and all the characters, and the rotation of the frequency of rotating the passwords will be a necessity that needs to be incorporated throughout the K9 contour. So that's kind of why there is a need for either some type of support as far as whether it's our services on site or through a different technology support company. And that kind of comes with the security training as well. Having, like I said before, emails, phishing, all that needs to be taken care of through the type of security training and awareness, because those are some of the most vulnerable. What makes our system vulnerable is user awareness. So it's important that our users are aware of all the policies and procedures that are in place, not only for K9 contour, but as far as for any type of attacks that might occur. And so, with them having portable devices such as the Surface Books and the Surface Pros, it's essential that they are working from home, that they need to be secure when they're accessing our network. And so we do have the VPN set up as well, as far as we will have the network VPN set up as well. So when they do access our network, that there is a secure line between the two, and that we're not at risk. Our network is not at risk for those. And also with the policies that we have, user elevation is something that needs to be incorporated as far as warehouse users won't need the same access as designers, and won't need the same access at reception. So having all these in place are some of the things that, as far as security, that must be addressed. Not also with the security with those users has to be the physical access. So as far as the warehouse users shouldn't be using the server room, and so we do have their own server room has their own security locks and doors on those, and so you have to have the password to get in those, as far as the key codes to get into the server room. So those are all management concerns that must be addressed and must be noted whenever you're handling the security of K9 contour. And so when it comes to the environment changes, that as far as, like I said before, the life cycles and the hardware, they're going to be changes. So you have to prepare for those, and you have to be proactive in those and not more reactive. So we're going to, as far as hardware failure, in the event that our hardware failure, we have to have backups and storage, backups in place, and this consists of backups of our offsite that we have, our cloud support, and also having images of our systems. So we decided to have images for our computer users, so that if in the event that hardware does fail, the downtime can be drastically reduced and minimized, so that if the warehouse user is hard drives fails on the computer, and we do replace the hard drives, having an image to upload all the applications, all the necessary applications and drivers they need for that specific device, we have those all backed up on the image. So having the image in place can minimize the downtime that we have, not only for our workstation for the users, but also for our servers and any type of hardware and network installation configuration that we have set up. So that's one of the major concerns that for our configuration management that we want to address, because we do want to keep the workers working and minimize the downtime. And we also want to implement a testing environment and deployment. So instead of just automatically applying all the patches and all the upgrades that are needed for each hardware system, it's important to have a designated area where we're able to test these in the testing environment. So having virtual machines set up to where that when patches are become available, we can test them out in a designated testing environment, so that they're not actually accessing the networking system. So that if it does, so that the software doesn't integrate properly between the two, we will be notified of these before we actually deploy them out to our users and to all of our workers. So that's kind of another issue that we need to address as far as our database server, because we want to have make sure we have all the most up-to-date and current information in our database. So testing out those services are definitely essential as far as when handling deployment. And for our network lifecycle management, it's important that all of our hard drives, all of our management services, all of our network equipment is up to date. And so services for, say for instance, our server 08 and server 12 over a 5-year period, sometimes systems don't function as properly. There's time for speeds begin to diminish. So it's important that upgrades are necessary. And planning for those upgrades in the proper time, whenever you're doing development and doing the accessing all your documentation of the equipment, it's important to have those in place, so that, again, that you're proactive in these situations and not reactive in case of hardware failure, any type of components that go into making the network that we have in place. So these are kind of some of the major concerns that we want to address. There are other concerns that will be incorporated in our policies and procedures, but these are some of the concerns that we must address initially when we get to implement this network appliance. Now, Josh.
So with all that being said, about the concerns and the support, one thing I wanted to address is we felt that we should offer, within the cost of the installation, a sort of 6-month warranty like that was talked about with the continued support. I know that that's a little bit, we all know that that's kind of a little bit lenient, a little bit more liberal with the warranty of that type, but we feel like that's right by our customers. And during that time, we can, if they so choose, if Canine Couture decides to go with someone else, we can help them, though that would most likely look at competition. We're really in the business. We really are looking for setting up and implementing networks. And so if they so choose to go with a different competitor or a different company, we would help them in switching to that. Though we would try, if they do want to be part of our maintenance system or a maintenance routine, we would definitely continue with them. We'd love to have their business. That being said, in conclusion, we want to reemphasize that this plan that we have is just a recommendation, but we feel that it is a good recommendation, that it will accomplish exactly what Canine Couture is looking for. It will help them with the growing demand for their products. It'll also allow them to be able to scale in the way that demands increase and staffing increases. And also, we just wanted them to know that we wanted to implement or recommend a system that would have security in mind as well. Something not only network security, which is a huge issue, but also facility security. We don't know if anyone will be trying to necessarily cause espionage to occur, but we do know that burglary occurs and things get stolen, and equipment isn't cheap. And so having, if nothing else, if it were to help in a corrective action or in a corrective control and help them track down someone that decides to burglarize their facility, then it's accomplished its job in our opinion. So we want to deliver this. We want the system to be, we feel it is a high-class system, but at the same time it is affordable, and we didn't feel like we were trying to max out her budget, but rather give her the best that we could. And we also want to present it with the best customer service possible, so that we leave them knowing that they had a really good experience with that. That being said, I believe that Dylan is going to cover the appendix and also the contract language.
I know it's kind of hard to see because it's sideways. It's my fault on that one. But we believe this. It's going to take us about 226. Yeah, I should have had this the other way. That's my mistake.
But the 226 days also includes the 6 months of service.
Yes. So we plan that the implementation of this system for y'all is going to take about 226 days. That's including the 6 months of service that we will provide in supporting it and maintaining it during that month. The reason we went with this was because we wanted to sorry. I don't think I was supposed to open that, and now I can't go back. There it goes. Okay. We went with the 6 month, or we added the 6 month incentive a part of our proposal, because who better to support past the implementation process than the people who actually implemented the system as well. We will know how we put the system together, so we can support it better when things could happen, random things that happen with technology. We planned that the network design is going to take about 33 days, which will include implementing the logic design and the physical design. This was all the design phase that we just proposed to you. It took us approximately about 33 days to put this design together. The implementation process, am I flipping or? Sorry, I'm getting feedback. The implementation process, we're gonna start with the network infrastructure. So this is going to include the cable installations and the cable drops that we're going to put throughout the walls. We predict that this will take about 3 to 5 days to implement all the cable drops throughout your facility. The next one we have is the server implementation. So this is actually putting the physical hardware in your data center and installing all the cable drops into that, plugging them in and getting that set up, which we set about 2 days to do that as well. The next one is going to be the printer installation. So that would be setting up where the printers are going to be located within the open office area, the reception area of the front office, and then also in I'm drawing a blank. It's the warehouse. Thank you. I'm sorry about that, but as well as in the warehouse. Between the printers, the workstation setup, and the workstation distribution, we plan that to be about 5 days. For that to take about 5 days for us to accomplish that, and again, make sure that everybody is set up. All the accounts are created and are active in the Active Directory. We're going to make sure that we separate the VLANs successfully, that everybody is trained as well on how to work with the workstations and connect it to the domain and connect to the wireless in case they've never accessed wireless points before
until now. The last thing that we're going to work on is the execution and controlling the process, which is going to be the remainder of the about 180 days, which will be, I believe, that does include the 6 months as well, and managing that. But we want to make sure that we get y'all taken care of. We don't want things to go down. We want the system to be implemented correctly the first time, where y'all are going to be successful for the 5-year period as a part of your return on your investment. So let's go ahead and talk about the contract details. This contract lists out what we're going to do. For legal reasons, I am going to read this verbatim so that you are aware of exactly what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get started. This statement of work is issued pursuant to the consultant service master agreement between Connie Contour and the Network Bros, effective of 8/1/2016 or August 1st, 2016. This SOW, or statement of work, is subject to the terms and conditions contained in the agreement between the parties and is made a part, therefore, of any term not otherwise defined herein shall have the meaning specified in the agreement. In the event of any conflict or inconsistency between the terms of this SOW and the terms of this agreement, the terms of this SOW shall govern and prevail. This SOW number 109, hereafter called the SOW, effective as of July 28, 2016, is entered into by and between contractor and client, and is subject to the terms and conditions specified below. The exhibits to this SOW, if any, shall be deemed to be a part hereafter in the event of any inconsistencies between the terms of the body of this SOW and terms of the exhibits hereto. The terms of the body and the SOW shall prevail. Period of performance. The services shall commence on August 1st, 2016, and shall continue through August 16th, 2016. Now, this is the implementation phase. The scope of work, contractors shall provide the services and deliverance as follows: installation and configuration of the network and computer resources. Contractor responsibilities for us is installation and configuration of the network and the computer resources. Item description: cable and drops. Number of resources are going to be used is 4. At an hourly rate of $125 per hour for a total of 16 hours of cable drops. The installation, we're going to use a number of resources is 4 with $60 per hour for a number of 48 hours. Upon completion of this performance period, contractor and client will have the option to renew their agreement for an additional then stated number of hours at the then current hourly rate for those resources identified. We have the bill of address where the check or money order, however they choose to pay us, will be listed there. For out-of-pocket expenses, invoice procedures. Client will be invoiced monthly for the consulting services and a T&L expenses standard. Contract invoicing is assumed to be acceptable. Invoices are due upon receipt. Client would be invoiced all costs associated with out-of-pocket expenses, including without limitation costs and expenses associated with meals, lodging, local transportation, and any other applicable business expense listed on the invoice as a separate line item or an itemized list. Reimbursement for out-of-pocket expenses in the connection with performance of this SOW. When authorized and up to the limits set forth in the SOW shall be in accordance with clients' then current published policies governing travel and associated business expenses, which information shall be provided by the client project manager. The limit of reimbursement expenses pursuant to this SOW is estimated to be about 15% of the fees unless otherwise authorized within writing and agreed to by both parties via the project change control procedures outlined within. Invoices shall be submitted monthly in areas referencing this client's SOW number to the address indicated above. Each invoice reflects charges for the time period being billed and cumulative figures for previous periods. Terms of payment for each invoice are due upon to support its invoices, including timesheets for services performed and expenses receipts and justification for authorized expenses. Unless otherwise agreed to by both parties, payments for services invoiced that are not received within 30 days from date of invoice would be subject to a 5% penalty per calendar month. Let's talk about the completion criteria. Contractor shall have fulfilled its obligations when any one of the following first occurs. The contractor accomplishes the contracted activities described within this SOW, including delivery to client the materials listed in the section entitled Deliverable Materials. And client accepts such activities and materials without unreasonable objections. No response from the client within 2 business days of deliverables being delivered by contract is deemed acceptable. So you will have 2 days to get back with us that you're satisfied with the work that we've done, or you're not satisfied with the work that we have done. Okay. Contractor and or client has the right to cancel services or deliverables not yet provided within 20 business days of advance written notice to the other party. So at any time that you wish to cancel with us, you have to provide us a written reason why you would like to cancel with us within 20 business days. And lastly, the project change control procedure. So if you want to make any changes to this project or add anything or file the expenses or out-of-pocket expenses that we have, you will have to follow these steps. The following process would be followed if a change to the SOW is required. Only required. A project change request, or PCR, would be the vehicle for communicating change. The PCR must describe the change, the rationale for the change or the reason why, and the effect the change will have on the project. The designated project manager in this case would be Joshua of the requesting party, contractor, or client, will review the proposed change and determine whether to submit the request to the other party. Both project managers, on our side and the client side, will review the proposed change and prove it for further investigation or reject it. Contractor and client will mutually agree upon any changes such investigation, if any. If the investigation is authorized, the client project managers will sign the PCR, which will constitutionally approve for the investigation change. Contractors will invoice the client for any such charges. The investigation will determine the effect that the implementation of the PCR will have on the SOW price, schedule, and other terms and conditions of the agreement will also be affected by the BCR, which will be held within the investigation. Now, upon completion of the investigation, both parties will review the impact of the proposed change. If mutually agreed upon, a change authorization will be executed. A written change authorization and or PCR must be signed by both parties to authorize implementation of the investigated change. If either one does not sign it or does not agree to it, then we cannot implement that change. In witness whereof the parties here to have caused this SOW to be effective as of this date and month and year first written above. So, and I have down here a client signature and then the network bros signature where we would sign if y'all choose to go with us. Thank you.
So that is our completed proposal. We do have an appendix to add to that, which does include an INSAT report. We felt like in a proposal that would be a little more lengthy than as far as just our oral proposal. We will include that with the normal proposal or with the actual written proposal. However, many of the vulnerabilities found, some of them are best guesses as Canine Kosher is also finding out what system vulnerabilities they have as far as employees go and things like that. So it's kind of a new territory for them as well, and we understand that. And so we did not feel that it would be best to overwhelm them with a ton of information that would give kind of the feeling that they can't be secure at all, which is complete nonsense. We believe that taking some small proactive steps, such as implementing a firewall, training users and how to use their passwords correctly, and how to not give and share critical data, stuff like facility security, and also having the ability to remote wipe devices, stuff like that. We felt like those vulnerabilities, the biggest, most glaring ones can be taken care of simply by common sense and by good education, training users correctly, and then as they settle in, if they so desire, we can come up and help them with that as well if they choose to use us in the future. much.